So we were just discussing how you ended up having a show at Alleged Gallery with Aaron Rose, and I was just curious, like, where you met Aaron.
I think he curated a show in LA maybe in around 93 or something. Maybe called Minimal Tricks, and it was kind of a skateboarding one. And then I think that's how I connected with him.
Yeah. Okay. And so then he asked you to do a show. Was it a solo show or a group show?
I think I might have been in a group show at Alleged before I had a solo show, but I could be wrong there too. And I don't know if I asked him or he asked me, but it did happen.
So we know that.
But the show in Rabat, the one in Morocco,
Yeah.
the solo show, was the first one.
Did you at that time, because Alleged became, this really fertile space for up and coming artists who are now, a lot of them are pretty well known.
Yeah. It was different. It was more of like a Lower East Side thing, and like Spencer Tunick was in the mix, and from there it's started growing, and then later Margaret and Barry came in, and yeah, it just evolved,
Yeah.
It just evolved. And then it's interesting because people were like, Beautiful Losers was like, it kind of all these people coming into Alleged like that. And then there's a really fertile time where people were kind of influenced and we're all showing together. And then it's kind of like, poof,
Yeah.
because it's just like life, like in that 20 spirit. And then, poof. And sure, we still do some things together, but it's not that.
But it's Alleged was like the springboard for so many people. It was just one of those places that pretty magical. Really, it just really community building is what I thought about it.
For sure.
Super cool.
It's also really just weird. It's like, how many current art movements do you even know about? And like the randomness of like actually being a part of it. First off, there aren't almost any. And then actually being a part of one, you're just like, how, what?
Yeah.
So random.
And so much of it resonated from skating.
Totally. Totally. I mean, really, like I said, didn't play fucking tennis. It's like the reason we're here today, we've had a long history together making stuff like skating, we skated together.
Yeah.
And then you made a freaking video that I couldn't get the soundtrack out of my fucking head, Like, I can't believe that I can't, like, get on my skateboard and ride down the hill and into Santa Cruz to go to the record store and buy this. Like, the fact that I cannot do this seems so weird because it's like the music is so good. And we were kind of making like more, not punk, but post-punk kind of singles and stuff. And what you were making was like over there. And we never even made a record. We just made singles because also we couldn't afford it. Then I called you and I'm like, let's make a soundtrack. The 40s video. And you're like, no. She's like, that doesn't sound like a good idea. It's like, maybe we should just make a record. Sounds good.
That's so funny. But when did you start Galaxia? Like what year? Because you did the Champs, right? Is that my
Yeah. Yeah. So we started Galaxia in like 92. The first single was actually Space Boy, which was Clifford from Blast. And then we did the Champs, which became the fucking Champs. When I lived in New York, then we did, I think, an Unsane single, because I lived with the guys from the Unsane. And then then Loose Screws and Master Blues, which pretty much made a lot of things possible, because we didn't know what we were doing. But people really liked it, especially in like Germany and England and Japan.
Yeah, which is still to this day. It's
where they still like it.
I just came from Germany and in Japan earlier this year, so
Yep.
I'm fortunate. Yeah, the thing is, you've worn so many fucking hats. It's crazy. So I want to reel it back a little bit. Like when you're skating and you're starting to do your art and things are starting to happen, but you're also doing some board graphics too, like in the 90s, right? Like you did board graphics for.
I think I did board graphics from First board graphics was for Small Room, then like SMA, Santa Cruz, Toy Machine, Consolidated, Crooked, Element, Design Area.
So you're doing art. So because you worked at Trans World,
Yeah.
and didn't you end up photographing for them, right? Being a
Yeah.
photographer,
So
staff
so
photographer?
that's like I said, I started at like 17. By about 22, I got my camera. Then I was already writing, doing like pro spotlights and whatever. And then I was able, and sometimes shooting portraits, but not shooting skating. And then I started shooting skating. I also worked for Big Brother. I did that, and then in '98, I got offered the job to be the photo editor at Skateboarder.
Yeah, when it came back around.
Came back for like the annual big issues. That was funny because Tony Hawk was the editor, and I was the photo editor, and Tony was just like really poor, like his career was like all, and his brother, it was at Surfer Magazine, his brother was the editor of Surfer Magazine and got him the job because he needed a job.
Yeah. Amazing.
You know, just like the
Best
lowest
skateboarder on the planet.
low ebb of thing. But this is the funny thing, then the second year, you know, going from like just needing to like piece it together, second year in the middle of making the magazine, the video game comes out, and more money than ever possible for everyone.
I heard him talk about that.
And then I ended up having to like basically be the editor and the photo editor to finish the issue because he was just like gone.
Woo!
You know? And but he was, whatever people say about anything, like Tony's as big as he is because he's a great skateboarder, he's a cool guy, and he's intelligent and he can fucking talk.
Yeah.
You know, some people can't
Yeah.
do those things, and he can do all of them.
Yeah.
Really one of the best, funnest people to shoot photos with, because you're like, hey, could you do like an egg there, or can you do like a stale fish off that, or you could just tell him whatever. It's like there,
Sure.
and he's just like,
Yeah. No, I did a lot of time with him on the road, and we even, you know, lived together when we were doing the Gleaming the Cube thing, you know, a little bit. And he's just he's super funny. And I don't know if a lot of people know that about him.
super funny.
Yeah. So it's all.
I think it's also just really high IQ, you know?
Yeah. He's super smart.
Yeah, and he can
completely.
tie it all together.
He always had the latest tech gadgets. Always. Like when we go on tour, and he had the first CD Walkman or whatever, you know, like what's that thing?
Actually,
Always
I got
had
my first
all of it.
computer from him.
See?
I traded him a painting for a computer.
That's amazing. What's your favorite photo that you've shot? Do you have like one or is it
Yeah,
like three?
I mean, no,
Skate photo.
no, just there. It's clear, like, yes.
Yeah.
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 I always, for years, like, you know, I just always like look at like gas stations when all the old gas stations used to have like the circular rings above. Then there would be like one, and then there'd be another one. But those things are just tin,
Right.
you know. And I would look at those and I'd be like, that would be so sick if you could get someone like doing a trick from one to the other. And you know, whatever. Some of the best photos obviously are like Sturt's, like Hensley on the hat, like just as far as like aesthetic photos that you're just, yeah, Gaberman or like, my favorite photo of skating of all time is Tony T as a kid. It's an Adam Walkavage photo of Tony T, and I think he has a mohawk, and he's doing a frontside air at Santa Rosa.
Yeah.
And there's a guy, and he's flipping out, and the
Yeah.
flash is right between his legs, and Tony's like looking at him, and it's just like, that's skateboarding. It's like the best. That is the best captured moment I think ever of like chaos of what skating is.
Yeah.
You know? 'Cause usually it's too perfect. But anyway, getting back to that photo. So those round things I always wanted. And for Skateboarder, we went for a week in Hong Kong and a week in Vietnam. Back in those days, people didn't travel to remote places. Like
Yeah.
I went the year before to Morocco with a bunch of the kids, like with Rowley, Steve Olson, the younger Steve Olson, and Donnie Barley. And then that year I went with Cairo, Brian Sumner and Adrian Lopez, and they were all AMs, because I was like, fuck it, get all the AMs that are hungry as shit, you know. So anyway, we would go there. When we came into the Hong Kong airport, we went out this way. Then we spent the whole week there and skated. And then when we came back in this way, right on this side of the airport, and we're going to Vietnam, right on this side of the airport, we saw those cement discs, and there was like 3 of them, and they were set apart from each other. And I was like, oh shit, like look at that, you know, like look at those. But then we had to get on the airplane and go to Vietnam. So we go to Vietnam, and I see on the way back that we have 4-hour layover or something. Well, okay guys, don't check your boards in. We're gonna go skate that stuff right outside the airport during our layover. So we go, and we go out there, and it's like the end of the day. That picture I shot was it was 3200 speed film, pushed to 6400, shot it like 2/50th of a second at 2.8. So like at the edge of what you could possibly do, because there was no light. But I got it. And then I shot some with flashes. But like, so that picture of Adrian Lopez hauling from
the disc to disc.
Disc to disc.
Yeah, they almost look like giant golf tees or something.
And
right?
it looks a lot gnarlier than it was, because the fisheye, like I just got in the spot where it spread them apart. So I always love like the really graphic, cool pictures, and I lucked out on that one. And
So you worked at Transworld, you worked at Skateboarder.
Yep.
And then when did you pick up the film camera?
Oh, when I lived in Manhattan from like 95, Manhattan and Brooklyn from like 95 to 98. When I was living there, it was the beginning of Supreme.
Yeah.
And I was friends with those guys, that crew. Like I'd always been kind of like punk rock, indie rock kid. I like jazz. I listen to jazz, but not a whole lot. And then when I moved to New York, it was just like jazz time for me. Coltrane and Miles and Dolphy and Alice Coltrane, and just like deeper. I was already into Alice and John and all that stuff before, but I got deeper, you know. Chet Baker's my dude, West Coast. But anyway, I was into it. And then I just had an idea, and I was like, you know, went to the guys at Supreme and was like, hey, can I make a little movie to John Coltrane's Love Supreme? Obviously that connects with your thing, whatever. So the first day that I ever touched a 16 millimeter camera was the first day that I started filming that. And Cheryl Dunn lent me the camera. And, you know, from having composition, from shooting photos, I could figure out light and composition. So it wasn't that far away for me.
Yeah. So that was it. That was really.
That was when I
films.
started making films. Yeah. Yep. And I just fell in love with. I just love film. You know, I love how it dances. I love what it does. And still, so that's how many years later? 20-something years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because I remember seeing that video, and it was just really cool. Because at that time, like doing the 40s video, just all the Super 8 stuff I love to shoot and everything else. And
for sure.
So, I was a fan of it. It's so, like, because obviously lives aren't, like, so segmented, right? They tend to ebb and flow, weave in and out of things that you're into, right? Sometimes you're doing this, sometimes you're doing that, and you're doing so many different things. You get into filmmaking, and you're photography still, and you're still doing, obviously, your painting and stuff. But you did the trilogy of surf films.
Yeah.
Seedling, Sprout, The Present.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
When did you start the Seedling?
I grew up by the ocean. I started surfing when I was a little kid. Before I made the Seedling, I was trying to make a little movie with my friends. We surfed every kind of surfboard, but we rode longboards also, and it wasn't a thing. People weren't really into it. And I was trying to make that. I was called Blue Fucking Corduroy Man, which never happened. And then I met Joel Tudor, and he's a skater, and he knew my work in skateboarding. And then he was like, we should make a movie. And then And I was like, whoa, okay. Like the best guy ever wants to make a movie. Cool. All right. So let's make a movie. So that was a seedling in like 98 or something. To be like clear, it's like I just took all the things that I learned from like making a movie, like a documentary movie is kind of like making a magazine. It's like it has its different parts, and I look at it as like you have this part and this part and this part, and they balance each other in certain ways. So I learned that from working on skateboard magazines. I just learned aesthetics and being an artist from skateboarding. So I really just took what I learned in skateboarding and applied it to that medium.
Yeah.
And I love surfing. People sometimes are like, "You're a surf artist," and I'm like, "No, I am no." Sure, do I do some things in that medium sometimes? Yes. If you want to put a title on me, I come from skating fully, 100%, and only adopted that information that direction. It's not really a reverse osmosis scenario.
You're always doing something. You're always constantly busy. But so I'm just trying.
Well,
I'm just
you
thinking,
know what though? Before you say that,
yeah.
I have to. No one pays the rent. Like people are, oh, you work so much. I'm like, I do work, and I do put the things in front of you so you can see it, so it will work. But there's no like that's my job. Like I have to like do some stuff.
Yeah. No,
and I have to come up with ideas that will float.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. Totally.
I think I think some people are like, oh, he must be rich or this. It's like,
Yeah.
no, dude. Like I'm
Hustling.
doing it.
Yeah.
I
know.
like trying.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. You're hustling. That's what I'm saying about you. You work so much, but my thing is really about you work so much in different mediums that it's pretty crazy because it's always like you were known kind of photographer and also a painter, but then also a filmmaker, and it's interesting. And and I always creative people are just creative. They're not you can't put them in their little pigeonhole them in a little box because you want to be able to say this person is this, and then you can possibly market it or something.
I would say on that point though, I would say that the one thing that I find is helpful for all those things is that, like, if I do one thing, if I work on a movie, and then I move from that to like working on art, and then I maybe move from that to like working on a record. By the time I come back to making a movie, I'm fresh for that. So it keeps things moving. Working out different muscles and then they all inform each other. Like a lot of my friends, especially in art, that are only painters, are nuts. And you know this.
Yes.
And it's very challenging because it's so insular. And like I like to collaborate with people. I like to do different things. And I could see years ago, like I was going down that path of like just being a visual artist, and we're all a bit cuckoo. I'm cuckoo. But I could see the cuckoo really coming in hot if I kept on that path. And I decided to like divert. I was like, I want to hang out with my friends and enjoy life. Like, I don't care if I'm some huge artist. Like, I'd rather just enjoy my life with the people around me,
Yeah.
But it's a choice, Like, if you could just hole up and that is your life, Like, people are like, what are you thinking about your legacy? Or what are you going to do? It's like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I'm just going to be fucking worm food and, like, whatever. I'm just trying to enjoy the days. And now I'm a dad, and, like, that's hacked up so much stuff in half. I'm just like, okay, different speed.
Yeah.
Got to be there for my daughter. And,
Heck yeah.
So, which is great.
So that let's talk about like what you're up to now. Like what I know you just released the movie. Well, no, you didn't really release it. You showed it. It's still being shown around. It's like a grassroots thing, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
You're talking about my skate film Yield Destruction. Mm-hmm. I probably started about 7 years ago. I probably thought it was going to be done 4 years ago. I had a daughter 3 years ago. Really, I think in the end of the day, we're under the same guys. It's like, I grew up with my friends just skating everything. We street skated, we skated pools, we skated ramps, like whatever there was to skate, we skated. You know, like in the 90s, things were like becoming very divided. There was like tech dudes and pool dogs and vert dudes, and I think a lot of it came from the tech dudes of being like, everyone's lame except for us. I never liked it. And I always revered people like you and Mark and Cardiel and Alan Peterson and Phil and Dandra Hobo and just people and the dudes that were just like, let's skate. And that's what I always thought about skating. Skating was just like, skate.
Yeah.
And not like, you're lame, you're whatever, fuck that. I just think like now, like it's just evolved to a place where it's not so division oriented. I just love how people skate. They just don't give a fuck. Evan Smith, like as a prime example, he could not be thinking about anything about what people think or how he's going to do it. And you're just like, that's the raddest. He doesn't care what it is. He's just going to shred it, you know? And also it's parks. Parks make people have good style. I don't think people even comprehend this, but like, you know, I went to live in Spain because they had parks. They had concrete to ride. And here we had Derby. The Dish. Kona.
Yeah.
And not much else. Now, I think there's close to 8,000 skate parks in the U.S. Anyway, I got inspired.
Yeah.
Like I loved it. And I was just like, you know what? I want to make a film. And like, I wanted to make it on film. And, you know what? I just connected with my friends. Like John Miner helped me film, and Mike Manzuri, and French Fred, and just whatever. And then some of my friends, like from when I was shooting before, like Ray Barbie and Israel Forbes and Barker Barrett and Jason Adams and Louis, and then, you know, and then like newer friends like Nick Garcia and Evan Smith, and then I, you know, from those people met different people like Mark Suchu, and just kind of like, I tried to do something that was like, I thought it was over here. And that's kind of how it always goes. Probably like when you're making records, you're like, I'm going to make this thing. And then it just like naturally kind of ends up over there.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be kind of community oriented, and I wanted it to be all sessions. And just kind of also be able to show the life or the just what it's like, because being a skater and like what you go through on a day-to-day basis is insane. And people can't even comprehend. Yeah. If you're not in it, there's no way you could know.
No.
And I love it, you know, the life, and just like such rogue fucking outlaw individuals, you know, just like Al Parton, you know, just like the best dude, you know, or Rainey Barris or Timo or whatever, all these people, you know, Zerosh, you know, it's like, what? You know, like crazy dudes, totally in their own world, doing their own thing. So I just felt like the idea of like having sessions in the advent of like all the DIY stuff that's been happening, just like we started like building spots, and like I met the guys down at Kernside and was like, hey, let's build a bigger thing that could be incorporated in the movie, and then built some stuff down there, and it just evolved. I'm kind of pretty sad that that's not my life anymore, because it was my life for so long, and I really had the best time. It's kind of like a non-linear way of releasing it. I just wanted it to be kind of a celebration of skating and not be selling anything. So I tried to stay away from that, and then I contacted all the people in my art community to like paint these raw blanks, and we auctioned them off. Was able to pay for the film through that. It's already been premiering for like the last 3 months or something, so until the end of the year. It's premiering in different places around the world. I think tonight, actually, it's playing in Lyon in France, like Jeremy Declan and French Fred set that up. And in a lot of the places, I'm getting local musicians to score the film.
To live score it. Yeah.
Which is cool because it's, when you see the movie, it's pretty community oriented, inclusive, and then you get that next layer of like getting the people in that community to come in. It's for free. Like, I'm just give the people the film and be like, if you want to raise money for your DIY or whatever, but here's the film, you guys do it. Get your musicians in your community. I kind of vet the musicians a little bit. I'm like, it's because it's the soundtrack. The original soundtrack is by the band No Age from LA. My feeling about it is it's kind of like tapping into punk rock. It's kind of more post-punk, but it's tapping into like my 14-year-old pissed off vibe of like what's happening in this country. It's not an overtly political movie at all, but it has a tension that to me relates to like our current political white guys stuffing their pockets with money scenario. And it's kind of dystopian or maybe post-apocalyptic, kind of has a feeling of that.
There's an aspect to it which is like because the music creates so much tension, then there's some fluidity happening because of skating where there's kind of these juxtaposed sort of ideas happening.
Totally.
Yeah. And you're just like, at some point you're like, whoa, it gets fucking kind of abrasive.
That was the idea, was to like have it have a palpable tension. So like when you start watching the movie, your stomach just kind of turns, and it doesn't unturn until it's over, you know? But anyway, so here, the movie, you can see it till the end of the year in different screenings around the world, or there's this, we made this little book, and it's got photos by Brian Gaberman, French Fred, Jai Tanju, Arto Sari, and myself. Sergey Vertek did all the type on it. And there's a streaming code. You can buy the little book, have a little book, see the streaming code. And
that's it. It's YOD, Ye Old Destruction. And it's on Yeah Arts, which is your little publishing company. All right.
Well, thanks for caring.
No, I'm stoked that you agreed to do it.
Awesome.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.